Hey everyone, welcome back. It is Tuesday, so I'm Tim here with Robot Butt Recommends. I can never even say that. It's like a tongue twister. I am here with Robot Butt Recommends for another installment of giving you things to occupy your time with as we continue to deal with the skyrocketing COVID crisis. Yay! But I did want to kind of keep things a little bit lighter. The past couple of weeks, on the Thursdays at least, I had the rain, so I was getting kind of dark and morbid, recommending a lot of serial killer stuff and all of that. So I wanted to kind of turn a little bit away from that and do some studio comedies that are actually really worth watching. And especially in the past few years, I feel like studio comedies have kind of gotten a bad rap, mostly deservedly so, because a lot of them haven't been super great. And I think a lot of that has to do with just the nature of the direction that studio comedies kind of started to take. Because after, in the 2000s, we got a big rush of, the Judd Apatow and the Will Ferrell and Adam McKay joints like Anchorman and Talladega, where you had these really long, kind of bloated, very heavily improvised comedies. And there were a lot of good ones that came out of that era. I love Talladega Nights, and you have the Anchorman movies and Step Brothers and 40-Year-Old Virgin. Knocked Up is pretty fun. So you have those kind of movies that kind of push the studios into that heavily improvised direction, but the problem is it takes quite a talent to pull that off, because you need someone who is both very charismatic and has that stage presence and is quick with the ad-libs and the improvisation. So that can be tough to pull off. But while there is kind of a dearth of really highly recommendable studio comedies, there has been a weird offshoot, kind of like almost genre within the genre, that has taken root. And there are two movies I'm going to recommend this week. So they're very similar in terms of premise and plot-wise. So it makes for kind of a fun back-to-back. But there's kind of a weird subgenre of comedy now where it's couples finding themselves in really weird criminal enterprises out of nowhere. And that is the easiest way to explain today's, which is The Lovebirds, which is a very recent comedy. It just released earlier this year on Netflix. It is a Netflix film. It was actually originally going to premiere and have the theatrical release earlier in the year, but it ended up being one of the first ones to kind of deal with COVID and have its release kind of scuttled. So it stars Kumail Nanjiani, I think I'm saying his name correctly, and Issa Rae. And they are both fantastic. And they are a big part of the reason why this movie is as enjoyable as it is, because they have that chemistry and they are able to banter and play off of each other incredibly well. And everything else is kind of anchored by that, because the plot itself is relatively whatever. It's a couple, they're on the verge of breaking up, their relationship is in a rut, and on their way to a dinner party, they end up accidentally finding themselves in the midst of a murder/blackmail conspiracy. And the plot is very secondary, and I think the movie knows it, because the movie just kind of treats that as a series of set pieces for our main characters, but the focus is always on those two. This is not an ensemble comedy. There are other characters, and it's not that those other characters don't have funny bits or anything, but they're very secondary. It really is the Kumail and Issa show, and that's fine, because they are goddamn hilarious together. And it is one of the more just outright delightful and enjoyable movies that I've watched lately, which is really kind of saying something, considering that the plot itself focuses on murder and blackmail, and there are scenes where, you know, they're being threatened with torture. So on paper there's a lot of dark elements to the story, but they just kind of find ways to just keep everything coming. And they have some great, you know, lines between the two of them. The dialogue is fantastic, whether it's scripted or they're improvising. At one point, Issa Rae's character calls documentaries reality shows that nobody watches. There's complaining about how salty a food is. Kumail's character talks about he didn't expect to be mouth-fucked by the Dead Sea. Like, there's lots of fun little lines that they get, and they play off each other. And even though the plot is largely secondary and doesn't really matter all that much, it does provide a really good structure for the two of them to kind of keep bouncing between different situations, and those different situations giving them different reasons and ways to play off of each other. And so it's a very enjoyable watch. It goes down very easy. It's kind of comforting in a sense, because a lot of terrible things are going on in the world. So having a movie where you are just kind of situated with two people that you enjoy watching is just a fantastic experience right now. So it is something I highly recommend. It is a fantastic showcase for both of them. Hopefully, you know, Kumail he's done some other comedy. He was on Silicon Valley. He did that Stuber movie with Dave Bautista, which that's more in the studio comedies that aren't all that great. But he's, you know, he had The Big Sick, which was a nice showcase for him, got him an Oscar. Issa has Insecure on HBO. She's making a name for herself with that, and producing a Black Lady sketch show. So hopefully the Lovebirds is just kind of the start of their continued upward trend in entertainment, because after watching this, you know, I was, like I said, a lot of comedies, especially after 2000s, got really bloated, where you have like 2+ hours, which can be a lot. This is much brisker. This is, you know, essentially the normal 90-minute film. And as much as I will sometimes complain about how long movies can be and how unnecessary it is, this is one where I was kind of like, oh, it's over. I really wish this would have gone on for 20 more minutes. So Lovebirds, it's great. It's a lot of fun. Go ahead and treat yourself from the misery that is going on around us with a very fun comedy. Way to sell it. But that's it for today. There'll be a little bit of a follow-up to this, another movie on Thursday that kind of goes along with this. So if you want to save it for a double feature, you can. Otherwise, check out The Lovebirds tonight. And, just another quick note, today we released the second episode of The Franchise Strikes Back, the podcast that I do with Steve and Litton, some of the other Robot Butt folks. So you can also go and check that out. This episode is about the Mad Max series. So if you aren't getting enough of a dystopian hellscape by watching the news, you can listen to us talk about the evolution of that franchise and how fun watching people fight, do a cage fight in bungee cords is. So additional recommend there / shameless plug. So go ahead, have a good night, and I will be back.